Okay, so basically, today we'll be talking about the science in Vedic scriptures, especially Hindu scriptures. Not that we are going to include the other civilizations as well. That's not today's topic. That will be in another.
Mm-hmm.
So let's. So basically, we'll start with basics of the mythology itself because many people don't know about that. And then I'll show you what references we're using, and then look at mentions of the solar system and the Big Bang, how the Big Bang is also mentioned in the Vedas.
Cool.
So basically, we need to start with how time works in Hindu mythology. So it is said that from the creation of of the universe, basically, to the end of it, the period is divided into four yugs. So the first one is the Satyug, the second one is the Treta Yug, and then there's the Dwapar Yug and there's Kali. And currently, we are living in the Kali. Now, the Kali Yug is the shortest yug, and if you look at it in mathematical terms, you can take Kali Yug to be X, and the length of the Kali Yug, that is, I think, 43,000 years, 432,000 years to be X. And then the length of the Dwapar Yug would be 2x, Treta Yug would be 3x, and Satyug would be 4x. So it's like multiplying several times.
So we'll be applying them with like 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, as we go backward, so the Dwapar Yug would be 3, and then 2 and 3, and then 4. Satyug gets 4 times Kali.
So
So,
again, it's like a chain. We'll come back to the same place. After Kali, we'll come back to the from the starting. It's basically a chain. It's a cycle.
it's more like at the end of Yug it will be destroyed and then it start again. So yes, it is like a chain. So at the beginning of Satyug, everything is created again, and then at the end of Kali Yug, it's all destroyed. That's how it works. Okay, so this entire period from Kali Yug from Satyug to Kali Yug is known as one Mahayug, as you can see over. I don't know if you can see my pointer or not.
We can.
So it combines to form one Mahayug, and it is said that okay, so in Hinduism there is a god Brahma, and he is the god of creation. And it is said one day for him is equal to 1,000 of these cycles of creation and destruction. So that was the first time that relativity was mentioned, I guess. Relativity does say that time does not move the same everywhere. So that was the first time it was mentioned in Hindu mythology. See, one more thing is that I'm not saying that we should take these as like laws, but instead we should just take a step back and we should just admire that the rishis in like 15,000 BC knew about all of this before the modern scientists did.
That
So,
is cool.
okay. And then we talk about our sources, which is, I'm sure all of you have heard of the Vedas.
Yes, we
Um,
have.
They were written in
Yeah.
15,000 BC, according to Western philosophers, which is probably much older. Um, but like that, even that is like quite impressive.
That is
So
correct.
there's a total of four Vedas: Rigved, Yajurved, Samved, and Atharvaved. And Atharvaved was written a little later, but that's a story for another time. And then there's the Simrad Bhagavatam, which is see, there are 18 Purans in Hinduism, and it is one of them, not that significant. And then you have the Hanuman Chalisa, which I am sure people have heard a lot, and it
Yeah.
was written by Tulsidas in like 13th 14th century, I think. So that's that. And then we have the actual exerts, which is if you look at the first image over here, it says the Earth is devoid of hands and legs, yet it moves ahead, and all the objects over the Earth also move with it. Basically describing the solar system, it moves around the sun.
Oh, so this was
Then
like written 5,000 years ago, according to the estimates. And
probably more than 5,000 years.
right, and it still gives a proper description of the solar system.
Exactly. And it's even written here that the planets move through that the sun has other Earth and other planets moving across it using the force of attraction, which is basically gravity,
Oh,
which has also been proved true in the 18th century. It was already written in the Vedas around 5,000 years ago, as Koshaka said.
right.
And then the sun moves in its own orbit around space, taking along with it the mortal bodies like Earth through forces of attraction. Now we know that the sun moves in like the outer arm of the Milky Way galaxy around around our black hole, which is Sagittarius A star. That was, I think, actually discovered in the 19th or 20th century. It's a very recent thing that the sun moves around a black hole, but it was already written. Again, we keep saying that. And then the sun moves in its orbit, which itself is moving the earth and okay, wait. Yeah, it's basically the same thing again. So and again a reminder, this was the time when people thought that the earth was flat, and Galileo was literally hung for saying that the earth could move around the sun. So yes.
Sacrificial.
Then we have planetary motions. So for us to understand why the saints would ever care about planetary motions at all, is the reason for that is that everything in the Hindu mythology is connected to astrology. And astrology is the study of um, it's basically predicting someone's horoscope or someone's future based on the time when the person was born, or based on the time when the thing was born. So, for example, if my birthday is September 5th and I was born at a particular time, there will be a certain position of the planets at the time when I was born. And that position apparently will determine my entire personality. Now, many people find that very absurd, like how can planets do all of this and all of that? But it was a huge study in for the saints, whether you want to believe it or not.
No, but
And that is why they started to study planetary motions. And this is what they came up with.
can I add on
So,
something over here?
yeah,
If you think about it, like you know how moon and to an extent both Jupiter and Sun affect the Earth's tidal waves, right?
yes,
So think about it. The Earth is like 70% water, right? And technically we are also 70% water.
that
So
is.
how can we be sure that the gravitational forces do not affect our brains and maybe even blood?
They probably do. They probably do. There is a ton of scientific evidence about astrology as well. Maybe we should do another presentation on that next time.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, okay, so moving. So, astrologers basically they had to predict a lot of things. Like whenever a person was born, there are people who are born every second. So for that, they came up with the charts for the planets' position in every second of every day. So as it's written, oh wait, sorry, yeah. So they made a chart for every second of the day in order to predict people's lives as they wanted to. So because of that, they also wrote in the there's also a story in the Rig Veds that tells us about how the sun gifted its sun rays to the moon when the moon
Hmm.
was getting married. And we know that the moon doesn't have its own light, and it's actually the sun's light which is getting reflected. And that was also mentioned in the Rig Veda
Hmm.
by 15,000 years ago. Not only that, even the eclipses were mentioned. Like most civilizations thought of the eclipse as, some wrath of the gods or something like that.
Yeah.
But in in the Vedas, it is actually written that the earth quivers in darkness when you are covered by the whom to one by whom you are basically when you're covered by the earth quivers in darkness. So they knew that it is
Hmm.
the moon that is covering the sun during the eclipse. I wonder how.
Planetary motion.
Exactly, and they studied it in so much detail. It's it is more of like a very mythological thing, but it is said that some people just have this divine power. Like Ramanujan, the mathematician, he said that there was this Devi who came in his dreams and told him about the formulas. He didn't even think of anything himself.
Oh,
So you can argue that uh, that like the divine power actually exists and some people are just blessed. But the evidence is there that these people knew about scientific things much earlier than our science, than the modern scientists.
right.
Moving on to Kepler's laws of planetary motion. Now, Kepler, as we know, introduced his laws in 1609, and the Rig Veda was written again in 1500 BC. And it states that the speed of planets moving around the sun is inversely proportional to their distance from the sun. So that somewhat is Kepler's second law.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is that the Vedas also mentioned the distance between the Earth and Moon. Their distance was 258,000 miles, and our distance is 238,900 miles, which is quite similar. You can forgive them for that like extra
Right.
2,000 miles.
Extra
Why does
20,000.
this keep happening? Yeah, 20,000. Sorry. Um, then there's the Hanuman Chalisa. Now you might have heard this before that the Hanuman Chalisa has predicted the distance between the Earth and Sun, and it has done so by saying, wait, there's a term missing here. Like over here, there is a term missing. I think that was accidentally deleted. But the term is basically Jojan. So in Hanuman Chalisa, it is written Jug Shahastra Jojan. Jug is 12,000, Shahastra is 1,000, and Jojan is 8. So when you
Right.
multiply all of that, it becomes 9.6 crore miles. And currently, the distance between the Earth and Sun, which the astronomers have calculated, is 9.3 crore miles. So again, 3 crore miles is a lot, I get that, but it is extremely accurate and much more accurate than the people who were saying that the Earth was revolving around, the Sun was revolving around the Earth.
Yeah. Right.
Then we
So
come
this,
to like,
all of
I think,
this,
what?
so you're saying that religion and science is basically they both are connected somehow.
Yeah, that is what we're trying to, yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Um, I don't think necessarily we're trying to say that. We're just saying that it has been mentioned before.
Yeah,
Like,
because it's mentioned in Hanuman Chalisa and a lot of religious texts. That's why.
Hmm.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, so the Big Bang, and this is like one of the more, you can say, thoda sa extravagant topics because it's explained really poetically in the Vedas.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
the thing is, as I told you before, the ultimate destruction after 1,000 yugs, that is one day in Brahma's life, um, everything gets destroyed. And when everything gets destroyed, it doesn't necessarily get destroyed per se. It contracts into one singular space, an extremely small space, and all of the elements just contract into that space and go inside the body of Vishnu. And then again, after for another period of 1,000 Mahayugs, it is completely silent, right? There is no movement, there's no space, there's no energy, there's no nothing. And then Brahma wakes up again, and then Vishnu exhales his all of the mass and everything inside him, and it starts to expand. So, however poetically they might have described it, this is basically an exact description of the Big Bang, which is everything was once concentrated into one singular mass,
Right. So
and now
Brahman
it's
is like a literal personification of the universe.
yes, exactly. Personification is the right word. So it was first it was like contracted and now it's expanding. And not only the Big Bang, this also explains like the current expansion of the universe, which everyone's so confused about.
Does does there like the ultimate destruction of the universe automatically happens or someone actually destroys it? Like Shiva is actually known as the he destroys
As
all
the
the universes that destructor, and whereas the Vishnu is the creator, you know.
Vishnu is the protector and Brahma is the creator. See, if you look at the text, then what happens is at the end of Kali Yuga, okay, let me explain this. You know the Vishnu avatars, right? That
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah,
you know what an avatar is?
yeah.
an
Like,
incarnation.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
snapshots. Yeah,
So incarnation, yes. So basically the theory is that Vishnu takes a certain number of avatars in every yuga. So it will take four avatars in the Satyug, three in the Treta Yuga, two in the Dwapar Yuga, and one in the Kaliyuga. And
yeah, yeah.
you might say that, oh, we're living in the Kaliyuga. There hasn't been an avatar yet. That's because in the avatar comes at the end of Kaliyuga,
Yeah. So
and that
there's
is the
Avatar will come like
choice
somewhere
every.
after 12 or 13 years. That's
What?
they're saying like a lot of people are saying that Avatar of Vishnu will come like after somewhere 12 or 13 years. So
Um,
maybe it's the end of Kali Yuga.
he comes at the end of Kali Yuga, although there are some people who say that the end of Kali Yuga is coming, and then there are some people who say that it's very far. We don't really know. There's a lot of mixed information about that currently.
Okay.
But when he does come, his main purpose is to destroy everything.
Okay.
Does it destroy only like
Anyway,
okay?
that's the presentation. Um, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so when it comes to the Kalki Avatar, the incarnation that basically destroys the earth in the end of after the Kali Yuga ends. So how does it like how does he do that exactly? I mean, technically the big Vishnu is supposed to inhale the universe in, right? But his own incarnation is there in there destroying the world. So how does that work out?
See, incarnation is basically human form, right? Even when the human form is there, Vishnu's entire form exists in the background. So, yeah, that happens. And then the other thing is the destruction. There's a semi-destruction, and then there is the bigger destruction that
Right.
is there at the end of thousand yugs. So at the end of thousand yugs, that is when Vishnu inhales everything and then exhales everything again. But in the semi-destruction, it's just that it's all destroyed and then it's recreated again by Brahma,
Right. So
which
when
is
you say
like
it's
the
all destroyed, you're talking about the
But
earth beings, not the whole universe. If that makes sense.
that could be the case, yes. Or maybe the entire since everything is just so small for them, they could just destroy the whole universe and recreate it. That could also happen.
but I still have a question. So Vishnu is the protector and
Yes.
Shiva is a destroyer. So why Vishnu reincarnates as like out he creates his avatars and destroy the like yug, complete yug. Why can't Shiv do that? Because he's the he's known as the destroyer of the universe.
So there's this common misconception that like goes around a lot is that Shiva, being the destroyer, is actually the one who destroys. That might be correct in some cases, but in this one, it is more like Shiva is where you go after it is destroyed. For example, um, there is the Atma, right? So the
That's all.
Atma is basically your soul, and when you're born, you are born with a soul. When you die, the soul will take another body, and it will continue that cycle of birth and rebirth. And in the end, if you attain moksha, you will go to Shiva. So he is, in that sense, he is the end of everything. He's not necessarily the person who destroys everything.
Right.
So
So okay,
he is the
okay,
beginning and end of everything. As
okay.
So I like how our soul is like a part of the supreme, and then our soul also incarnates itself in like different forms, like the supreme,
yes, exactly. And the ultimate goal is like to merge with the supreme.
the Shiva.
Yeah.
So
Okay. And yeah.
why would the preserver not like, if you think about it this way, the Vishnu is like handling the universe, right? Handling all living forms. So why would he want people to go to Shiva?
Because Vishnu and Shiva literally, like, they worship each other. They see, if anything exists for too long, it starts to deteriorate. Like, for example, uh, just just take, if a person lives for too long, do you think that living forever is like a huge boon?
Not really. I mean, you could still feel pain, right?
Yeah, you'd grow old, you would feel pain, and you'd feel the pain of growing old. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, after a certain point, there's no point in really existing anymore. I'm not saying that there isn't a point in existing, but that's why everything that starts comes to an end. Because, and that's why Vishnu, in order to make sure that everyone is happy, he would actually want them to go to Shiva. Maybe that's why.
Right,
Like, there's a certain timeline.
right. So how did you get interested in the history of the world?
Uh, I was basically, my dad, he is also very much into all of that. So, plus, I'm from a Brahmin family.
Hmm.
Right. So these are like the physics applications of like uh the books, the mythological Hinduism books, or
Hmm.
historical for that matter. So are there like any other subjects that have been focused on, like maybe even math or chemistry for that matter?
Yeah, yeah, of course. There's Vedic maths, which is like a huge, huge study. Um, I think I read about it. My memory is a little bit like fuzzy, but I think there were four, or wait, there were 13 books of Vedic maths, just Vedic maths, like the entire ancient scripture, calculations and numbers, trigonometry, compound interest. I don't know why they needed that, but it's there.
Right,
So maths and chemistry, I think, but chemistry is a little bit like iffy, but there must have been a lot of mentions of chemistry as well. Because there was this one rishi, I forgot his name, but there was this one rishi who described everything we made up of atoms, and he called an atom a parmanu.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
So before that, people used to think that everything were made up of five elements. Punch that was, I guess.
yeah.
Okay.
so does that theory exist in like Hinduism as well, or Is it only like a Western concept, the five elements that constitute to like everything?
Well, in the Western concept, there are like 118 elements. So
No, I'm not talking about the periodic table elements, like the fire, water, air,
Then there are five,
cosmos,
yeah.
and nature, I think.
Air, fire. Yeah, there was five. There were only
fire,
five.
water,
Right?
air, space, and earth.
Yeah, these are like different types of
What was your
phenomena.
question? Sorry.
No, my question was, is this like only Western philosophy or was this followed in like India as well?
No, this is an Indian one that there were five elements: uh, fire, water, air, and space.
Right,
It
but
is actually even yeah.
you can continue.
No. Uh, you speak.
What I was saying is like, so they also prove that everything is made out of atoms, and they also chose to believe that there are the five elements that govern our life. So, what does this mean? Does this mean that the five elements are like manifestations of energy transitions or like God or maybe states of matter? Yeah, that's my
It
question.
it uh it and what do you mean by like energy transitions? Dekho, there's states of matter, solid, liquid, and gas. That is there in like okay. I think that they just tried to divide whatever they saw into five
I,
elements because if you
I
look
guess
around us,
that the
yeah.
thing, these five elements were before the like uh these five main elements were before the discovery of Parmanu. Like a Rishi told that, right? So maybe
Yeah.
after the discovery of Parmanu, they must have left this idea of five elements, basically.
Right, so it's like more historical and like more of philosophical aspect to the same theory.
I think it is kind of like what Sam is it Shambhav or Sambhav? How do you
Somehow,
pronounce?
somehow.
Okay, Sambhav. I think it's I agree with what Sambhav said. Maybe it is about first that was discovered and then later on the Parman.
That makes sense.
Anyway, you wanted to talk about the Agastya Samhita.
Yeah, so that's like the chemistry aspect, right? So I read that book, I guess you could say. I read the scripture and I noticed some very bizarre things. Like so they use a pot and some copper sulfate, diluted with water, of course, and
Mhm.
some iron, I think, to produce electricity. So what happens is like electrons go from one of the lesser electronegative materials to the one with the higher electronegativity, right? And this flow of electrons is stopped by the sand particles in the middle, and they have connected this to an iron rod, right? So the rod acts as a wire over there. Now, the scripture clearly states that having 100 such paths and putting two, I don't think they had access to carbon because like carbon would be a good thing for this job. So they use copper only. So they put basically two copper electrodes in water, right? And then they let the electricity flow through it. Now, there's this process called as electrolysis, in which if you electrocute any uh, a compound, I guess you could say, a covalently bonded compound, then it kind of breaks into pieces and the electrons break it into pieces and the individual atoms within the compounds are released off. So for water, it's like H2O, right? Uh, dihydrogen oxide. Okay. And so the book also mentions that when we do this, there are two gases produced. One is Jivayu, which means the gas which is essential for living. So that refers to oxygen in that case. And I don't remember the name they use for hydrogen, but in Sanskrit it referred to the lightest weighing material or gas. So
Yeah,
not only
that's
yeah,
what I
so
was.
not only did they know about electrolysis, they also knew about atomic weights, and the process of respiration.
Yeah, but the actual question is that like, why did everyone, why doesn't everyone know about it? Because all of this was like discovered a long time ago
Yes. So
by
there was
rishis,
this.
but why don't we actually like why did Western people abandon this?
It's not the Western people. There was this Mughal emperor named Khilji, right? So he wasn't feeling well once, and nobody in his kingdom could heal him. So he had to call someone from this university called as Nalanda University.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That
Uh,
university, yeah.
and then like the priest healed him, and then he was like really angry because his own people couldn't heal him. So he destroyed the university, and it
Oh
took like
yeah, all of the everything over there was like destroyed because
yeah,
every single information was stored in those books, the
yes,
library.
it took like 6 months to burn fully. That's a lot of books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And after that, the remaining ones like British destroyed them.
Your voice was breaking. Can you repeat that?
The remaining ones, like the leftovers, British
Mhm.
destroyed them. The half of the library.
No, the Britishers were smart. They didn't destroy anything. When it came to information, they took our books with them, and now they're hiring Vedic scholars to read our books.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And there were
He,
also
he,
Chinese.
that
There were also
guy.
Chinese. क्या बोलो?
His own people couldn't heal him, so he destroyed the entire universe. Not university. The why?
Uh,
Because
Jealousy.
they're bad.
Yeah, that's another way to say that.
Even the Sanskrit scholars like stole manuscripts and stuff. And the good thing about the Vedas was that they were never actually written down. They were memorized by people in rhythms and in rhymes. So
Oh,
the first time they were written down was in the 1500 BC. And because of that, many of the like Vedas are still preserved. That it was preserved in memory and it was passed down from guru to the shishya.